groups into 6.
User disconnected from your channel.
No, not gonna have a backwards flying. I can like do it when the drill is over. It's not much of a tactical thing to implement as a squad, more of a personal thing.
Okay.
Gather around the pretty fire, guys. The pretty lights.
When we leave them, we should be in formation.
Oh, somebody already burned his one.
Okay, for starters, I guess everybody is familiar with if you're gonna fly alone, it's best to be an engineer. I believe everybody got this, given the 90% of the squad is now engineers.
Isn't it always to be flying as an engineer? Sometimes you need to come in really hot and get prepared really quickly.
User joined your channel.
Yep.
I'm the only one not engineer. Whoops.
So a couple of information for you. I'm gonna start with like subjects I have displayed in the post. So I'm gonna go over them briefly right now. So first of all, method of avoiding air collisions during landing, fireflies, and pursuits. So that's our first subject. And for landings, I'm going to be talking about. In landings, you will be more likely damaged and even burning. In case you are burning, you have actually a performance decrease. So probably not going to happen near landing pads, but somewhere middle of nowhere. So what you should be prepared for is that your site will be on fire. You will be a little bit in panic mode, but what will happen is that your site will go down rather very fast, so you should compensate for it. Not gonna have a drill about that, but it's just a heads up on anytime you are flying and burning. So, during landing, first of all, the best way to avoid a friendly collision is just to listen around. Our sites have a very distinct voice that separates us from the rest of the aircraft. You probably already familiarize yourself with this. What you should do is that if you're in landing position, you are already slowed down. The best thing for you to do is stand still, because the person who is coming towards you has more spatial awareness than you. So best thing you can do is standing still. 95% of the time it will work, you will not crash. The person will take evasive action in the worst case and still not gonna crash. What you can do is you can always check the map for other incoming aircraft. If you're in a squad, it will be much more easier to spot the green guys, and blue guys is a little bit harder, especially when there's a lot of in the tower also. One crucial thing we have to put a protocol on is, let's say that we are approaching to the any landing pad. For instance, for this warp gate landing pad, I'm now hovering over. Always approach low, as in you want to approach the site with almost the same level as the landing pad. This is landing vector, so that you are landed. You have complete visual of the landing pad. You are not strafing around and doing erratic movements. In a busy situation, it will come in really handy to not do dangerous maneuvers around this place, and you will practically just come close, land silently. Very little altitude change here. You are gonna be getting off by default from the side of your site. So it's recommended to land on a pad in counterclockwise formation. So if you look at my site, which is landed on the northern landing pad, I'm always landed on anti-clockwise formation. So when I get out, I'm getting out towards the middle. That will make you able to land further to the edges. this will give landing area to the other sites and liberators, so you won't be the jackass who's landed right in the middle and opened the entire space. And this will also mean that you will not get out, you will not fall through the landing pad and crash your bones when you get out of the site. So for practice purposes, can everybody in the Alpha squad now land on the landing pads? Like, don't get out, just come in here for a landing. Remember, anti-counterclockwise formation. So when you get out, you will be actually getting out towards the inner circle.
Try not to flip Liberator.
Oh god.
Speedlash, he didn't mean you need to land upside down, it was counterclockwise, not upside down.
Counterclockwise in which direction?
Poor Liberator, we're getting free.
Oh no!
So
Where
I'm
the
looking
hell did I
around.
get out of my sight?
So yeah, everybody got the counterclockwise what it means. That's good. So any questions about this so far?
Nope.
I can demonstrate how to land if you want.
Too late.
No, I'm really good at it.
Okay, so we got the gist of it covered. So what you should do when you are taking off? As said while landing, always come from low, and once you repair, what you should do is, since the aircraft will be coming from low, the first maneuver that you want to pull to clear off the area is direct up maneuver. You can do this by simply pressing space. It will take you directly upwards. This is so that will clear off the landing pad. The reason why it's directly up is because most of the aircraft who are coming in will not swift over the landing pad like a madman, so you are less likely to collide with someone if you go upwards. Another important tip is that you can switch to third-person view by pressing T. This will give you more visual area, especially if in a busy situation you will be able to make fast maneuvers to avoid collisions. You will be able to see, oh god, shut up. You will be able to see other sites flying around, and my dog didn't like that. But yeah.
Is he coming over along?
So, this covers the landing on the landing pads. There will be more information on how to do it in, like, when you are attacking, when you are getting attacked. But
User
yeah.
left your channel.
So, but next thing is avoiding collisions during firefights. I'm gonna get a dummy target. It will be Ulysses. First, I have it inside the
User joined
platoon.
your channel.
1 second. Okay, so Ulysses' Thunder is currently going to the little bit north side of the warp gate. That's our main, like, enemy target. So I'm gonna be giving maneuvers in relation to that Thunder over there. Yes, the Thunder that is ever shooting at. So in a normal situation, you will likely, like, facing towards the target, approach the Thunder. You will preferably use the weak points, as in to attack from behind. But what will often happen is that other sites are also in the area, and there's a high risk of collision. One early warning is, of course, as always, your minimap, but I'm not expecting you to watch the minimap as you are focused on the target. So second best thing you can do is just, again, listen. I also don't expect you to open the third-person view just as you are focused on a target. So yeah, by listen, I mean, again, the best thing is to go a little bit directly ahead, unless you are absolutely sure where your friendly target is coming from, like you are hit face to face. Again, in that situation, sometimes it's just good to apply universal traffic laws. You take the right side. That's, of course, from guys from UK will cause more collisions.
That's so you're gonna have problems, yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's say you are attacking. You will probably make like a couple of up maneuvers and down maneuvers, but you will eventually end up just passing through the target. Unless you are making a couple of backwards maneuvers, you know, those fancy shit. So, the reason why I want you to go forward and not make crazy maneuvers is again to benefit the guy who's coming from behind you. Because your sudden movement from all the firefight can cause him to just skip the frame and cause a collision. Checking the list. Okay, that's about it for the chasing, how to attack a ground target.
Can I add one?
Yeah, sure.
When attacking on targets, ideally you want to be beneath, like 30 degrees, less than 30 degrees above them, because then you'll hit the rear side of their armor instead of the top side of their armor. So you'll do much more damage.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So swing around in a circle like this might look cool and keep you alive until you crash into a friendly Scythe. Just burning into it from behind will deal so much more damage.
Yep. But keep in mind, you have to be also more careful about if everybody is trying to approach from behind, it will like slightly increase the chances of collision. But yeah, it's a situation. When you're attacking infantry, it's also for offensive side. I haven't got into that subject yet, but yeah, when attacking infantry, you want to be like in bird's eye view. When attacking tanks, you want to hit them from side and not from directly up. Okay, so next subject is how to avoid collision during a pursuit. So here's a potential dangerous situation. You both like 6-7 people following a single mosquito. There's bound to be a couple of people bumping each other eventually. So one way to avoid this is, again, by listening. That's the biggest tool you have while you are in the air. When you are like focused on a target, you can always listen to your surroundings. It will also come in handy to listen for other aircraft. Like you can hear a mosquito if you have a proper sound setup. You will be able to hear the enemy mosquito, you know, which side is coming from or where it is. So that will give you an advantage. Also, you can use it to avoid collisions. But yeah, again, I'm expecting you to constantly keep an eye out on the minimap, especially when you are trying to focus on something. Let's say that you are following the target and it exploded. The first thing you often do is you change your direction. But that's often where the most crashes happen. You change your direction, it is in a collision course with some other side, and you go oblivion. The way to avoid this is that either we will have a common direction to turn towards when the target is destroyed. That way we are like in sync going away in a certain direction. Or what you can do is during a chase you will often be not directly behind the target. You will actually notice that you are a little bit on the side, and especially if you are in a group you will tend to be on a certain side of the combat. If you are like more towards the right, I would recommend you to turn more towards right once the target is destroyed. If you turn left, you will be entering into the like little bit potentially full zone. So that will more likely to cause you a crash. Also, once an enemy liberator site or a galaxy is destroyed, the wreck is always something to consider. So if you destroy something and you are close to it, don't try to fly under the wrecks, because combined with your latency, the wreck is actually more down than what you see from your view.
Also, never brake.
Yeah,
braking sites are the #1 reason why I die in midair.
You can go directly forward. This can cause a collision, but it will also little bit risky maneuver in it, because Rake is a little bit like erratic. It can also stay floating in the air for some reason. It's just how the beta effect. But yeah. So next subject is any questions more about about pursuits?
If I could recommend one thing.
Sure.
If you're ever being chased and flying towards a friendly, tell us which direction you will be going when you bank, so that we don't dive the same way or turn the same way in order to intercept your pursuer.
And to
So-
that, you say a direction, it's like the person who says his own direction. So if I'm
Yeah.
driving towards you and I say I'm banking right, then that's your left, right?
Yeah.
Whoops.
I mean, the one way, if you are flying towards each other, one way to like make it, think of it like a road. I know it's gonna be hard for the UK guys, but work me on this one. In like other parts of the world, there's the right side, and if you have a license, you will kind of like a little bit instinctively go right. I don't know if this happens to some of you guys, but yeah, this can also be like our little universal rule. If you see a Scythe heading towards you, brake right, so that
Yeah.
if you both brake right, you will end up not colliding with each other. That's it. Most people in that situations go like, if you are directly facing each other, I've seen that little reflex is to go up or down, often going up. So if you are seeing a random guy heading directly towards you, it's more likely that he will try going up than down. But then again, you can also change your direction left and right. But if you see a normal random,
No whisper
I would
target
recommend
found.
you, if your altitude is like the same, exact the same. Otherwise, you have the option to think about to increase your survival chance. But on default, go down, because often they go up. That's what I've seen so far. So, for the next subject is the landing protocols for our air raids. So I already know how to land, as in land at the edges of the platform and under clockwise formation. This is so that when you get out, you don't fall down, but your also landing position opens space for the other aircraft. I'm checking the list. Third-person view is always recommended for landing and takeoffs. Yeah, for Sunders, this is a little bit special case. When we are in the front line, we will often have ammo sunder. This will mean that you can resupply and repair your site near the sunder. Often, preferably resupply your sunder near the... you resupply your site near the sunder rather than just going near it to repair. You don't want to occupy unnecessary space. But yeah, when you are doing that, if you are only near the sunder to resupply, never land. Keep S key pressed. This will keep you above the ground for like 5 meters. This means that all other vehicles can pass under you safely. So if you have a jackass driver that wants to roadkill you, or doesn't disregards your existence, that doesn't care about ramming you, you will be safe if you just keep the S pressed. And you can safely take ammo if you are near the sunder from this altitude. So when you are landed, if you like, the default formation is like half a meter more above the ground, control will bring you more down, so that if you are in a very busy place and just landed there, somebody else is repairing you, you can press control to occupy less space. This will in a way increase your chances of not getting blown up. And Sunder is moving, never hover right above the Sunderer to take ammo, because the landscape altitude changes, and if you cannot adjust in time, you will more likely to hit the Sunderer than to take ammo. So you can just hover near the Sunderer as it's moving. If it's not moving, you can hover wherever you want, as long as you don't collide with other aircraft. can open your third-person view to get a better view of the area, because there will be other aircraft coming, there will be tanks moving around, somebody might use its afterburners or is flying off towards your direction. So, another thing, let's say that our warp gate landing pads are this kind of what you call them, like crow tower landing pads, so that it's under attack and you want to land for repairs.
No whisper target
But
found.
the area is also occupied. I mean, the enemy can hot drop there, somebody can place a beacon, so you are not sure whether it's safe to land. But in this kind of situations, the best place to land is right underneath the landing pad. This is just to take to repair. For taking ammo, you can stick yourself underneath the landing pad. This will bring you into the taking ammo range while you are shielding yourself from drop pods. So you can stand underneath the landing pad, take ammo while you are protected from the incoming landing pads, drop pods. And if you want to repair, just land underneath the landing pad. This will give you coverage from them. Also, it will give partial coverage from enemy liberators that just maybe happen to pass by. So it's a good place to take cover, and it's not exposing yourself too much, because there's also often other buildings that you can use as a side cover, even though you are like lower to the ground, and enemy in the ground can be rather dangerous to you. The decision making is always up to you. So if the ground level is too high, too hot, your preferred landing position is on the landing pad. That is, of course, it's always preferred you go to a safe area to land, rather than landing on a hot zone where enemy could be just about anywhere. But yeah, this is the best places that I thought of so far about how to make a safe landing. Where are the best places to take ammo from, and safest. Of course, if anybody else has any input, it's welcome.
You can also do it on the amp station with the beginning pads. There's like a pad underneath where you can land and resupply.
Tech plants.
Yeah.
One thing about tech plants, this is a little bit advanced, but for amp stations and tech plants, especially for the amp stations, the shielded area, you can actually fly in there to take cover. A couple of times, like, gone in there because the area was too hot to leave the covered areas. Like in the middle of the desert, you don't have the option to fly off without an ammo to defend yourself. So just land in there. Don't stand on the vehicle pads with your sight. Don't directly make a boost, because when you are in that low to the ground, it will boost directly up, so you will hit the ceiling and blow up. What you want to do is you give slight boosts with your S key. This will hover you above the ground, and then you use your preferably mouse to tilt yourself towards the direction you want to go to. This will give you slight speed on the direction you want to go to. We can all practice this now. This is for maneuvering in tight situations like inside buildings and so on.
Also, how you can get ammo. If the landing pads are full of enemies, you can actually hover beneath the landing pads to get ammo as well. So you don't have to land on top of them, you can hover below them as well, if they are covered, and you don't need to repair.
Yep.
One thing I would not recommend using S to hover inside places if you have hover stability 3. You will shoot up into the roof sometimes. It increases your hover distance from the ground.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And hover powers. If you're close to the ground and press S, you will shoot up quite a bit. Yes, I've done so.
So other than S, you can also give little twitches of the W key. They practically both work the same way. The S is just keeps you stationary after a certain altitude, while S, once you pass that altitude, it just drives you forward.
And the minimum speed to maintain altitude is 60 kilometers per hour. If you go beneath that, you will slowly lose altitude.
Cool.
This is for Liberator and Galaxies, right?
No, it's for...
About Scythe's altitude regardless of the situation.
No, if you go 6 kilometers per hour, you will
you mean
maintain
the speed?
altitude.
Yeah, the speed. I thought you were saying about the altitude. I mean, Liberators and Galaxies can stand still at a certain... Yeah, I thought you were meant... Yeah. Okay. So, any questions?
Recommend the turrets.
Okay.
Flare.
Regarding search, yes, Flare is your best friend because AA is very cheap these days. People, almost everybody have it. So the first one gives you 40 seconds of recharge. The rest just decreases the timer. I wouldn't recommend. Some people have gone for fire suppression system. You will rather want to avoid getting damage rather than dealing with the damage later on. As performance, the dogfighting frame just makes you turn faster, but in a dogfight, if you are using the space and the control to change your altitude at the same time, hover stability can come in more handy because you are basically using your hover power to change your position rather than going forward and using A, D keys to change your direction and using mouse. As for gun, I would definitely recommend you having one weapon as infrared optics. It will come really handy in finding targets. The thermal optics is a little bit low on distance. As a Scythe, you want more distance you can cover. You can just fly around with your infrared optics open. I have it on dual pods, and you can have it on your other Sauron laser or Hailstone turbo laser. It doesn't matter. For one thing, like for instance, for Hailstorm and Sauron, you have two options: magazine size and reload. I would recommend going for magazine size because magazine size basically means that you have to reload less, but also during a strike you get to unload more ammo before you have to like take a mental break, because while you are in a chase you often like shoot a couple of your bullets and then during reload time you adjust your position rather than keeping that target aimed. Of course, if the target is stationary, that doesn't apply.
One thing, since we're talking a little bit about maneuverability as well, something that not everybody may realize is that in order to do some really tight maneuvers and then really pull out hard if you're in a dogfight or something similar, is go and bind your arrow up key to something you can reach, maybe something on your mouse or something. Because basically, unless you have pretty much insane mouse sensitivity, it will give you a much better pull-up effect than actually moving your mouse. So for really hard banking turns, flip on your side, hold down that key so it actually presses the arrow up key. Or aircraft effect, pitch up it's called. It will allow you to do much sharper turns.
Wackadoodoo. I can still recommend you do not get the light PA.
I can strongly recommend you that get it immediately.
Well, it's great for infantry suppression and killing infantry, but if you manage to kill more than one plane who's standing stationary with it, then you're damn good.
I mean, you can get up to 70 bullets in one magazine and they kill with 2 bullets. You can just destroy like a spawn room or something. That's just
yeah, but
feasting
once
with
you get
enemies.
With a fighter, you're fucked.
Well, rocket pods can do enough to
I have the light
planes.
PPA, I know it works.
Okay, clear
And
comms.
it does not work dogfights.
You can take it on the forum.
Okay, so next subject is intel providing. So you're in the ground, and I mean you are in the air, and you want to provide intelligence to ground or air. So, Suka, get the fuck off me. So there's two types of intel providing. One is object-oriented, which means that you are providing intel to a specific target, and the other one is directional, which means that you are providing intel to the group. Directional is mostly used when providing intel to ground units, which goes like, as everybody knows, enemy prowler to the north or enemy liberator to the north. So you are informing ground units about the existence, or ground or air units about the existence of enemy in that direction. Object-oriented information is rather more short-ranged. For instance, our Sunder, everybody's in the Sunder, and the Sunder is heading towards a direction. If you see like a prowler suddenly appearing in the behind, you don't want to like think of which side it is. Is it north, is it south? And it will just take more time to give object-oriented information. So Sunder, prowler on your 6, prowler on your tail. That kind of information is also situational, but it's much more faster. The Sunder will know that the enemy is behind much more faster than giving him the compass for information. So while giving information to targets, you should mostly prefer directional rather than object-oriented. But when you are giving information to air, what's often more handy is that you give object-oriented information. Because in air, for instance, you want to notify your friend about mosquito on your tail. You don't say directions. It most often comes as instinctual that carry on, you have a mosquito on your tail. And you can also add additional information like I'm engaging, so that he can take evasive action, as in whether to fight or attack, fight or flee. So directional is not much preferred in the air. However, if you are like an air armada heading towards you from north, you have to notify everybody. So that means that calls for a direction. That's a rare case you can use to inform air about the enemy.
Can I add something to Dave?
Yeah, sure.
In regards to the direction, and as you say, when a mod approaches, it's also to add the altitude of their position. And I'm not saying, 3 mosquitoes north 400 meters, but I'm saying 300 mosquitoes north, mid, high, or low in times of altitude. That usually helps when you look for them.
Yeah. Another thing for you can give as a fast information to your fellow pilots is simply saying watch out. Like you see, because often each one of you have different knowledge of the area about where the enemy is stationed, and one of your sites may be heading to a heavily AA covered region. So simply saying watch out should indicate that the carrying watch out. So if I say this, carrying will be more likely to think of, oh crap, there's something terrible is gonna happen. Right. Okay, not maybe that much, but he will get the idea that something is bad is going to happen. So if I say carrying, and as he's flying, carrying watch out, I can also add additional information after that. But the moment I say carrying watch out and give that kind of information, carrying will be more in the defensive position and be ready for AA suddenly shooting at him rather than being surprised. So give this kind of info. Don't be hesitant on giving this kind of information to your friends. Other than that, you can also use this if you are in a hurry, you get confused. You can give the watch out command, the information if there's a mosquito on somebody's tail. So in battle, often the target site by the targeted site will not have the immediate understanding that a mosquito is on the tail. So the information you provide him can save his health from the mosquito's first salvo attack, because they not always use the missiles. They can use the rotary turrets, and that's a pain in the ass thing. So
you'll pay the ass.
Yeah. So next subject is some basic survival tactics. It's in two sub-subjects. It's about timing and object cover. Timing is mostly about afterburner. So when you are flying, you are cruising speed, you are heading towards the battlefield, like you know where the battle is. Don't use much of your afterburner. I mean, you will get there faster unless you're in a hurry, like your group directly needs your air fighting power against a identified tank. Okay, but other than that, try not to use your afterburner so hastily, because an enemy mosquito can suddenly come into your tail and you might want to need fuel to pull off a backwards maneuver or just to flee the AA missile or anything like that. Max units shooting you. So that should save you at least a couple of seconds of getting exposed to the enemy to conserve your fuel. One thing about the afterburner, how they work, is that everybody has an afterburner, so you can all test this now, as I'm saying. When you first click the afterburner, it directly consumes a set number of your fuel. So this means that when you press the afterburner, you lose directly 20% of your fuel, something like 20%, depending if you have the airframe package, which increases your afterburner fuel capacity, or if you have the fuel tanks. But it directly, just know that it directly eats a portion of your fuel when you engage afterburner. So if you want to go to a position as soon as possible and you are planning on using your afterburner, use your afterburner as late as possible. So when your afterburner reaches maximum fuel, then use it, because otherwise you will be constantly engaging your afterburner and then depleting the fuel. In the meantime, more often giving that set amount of fuel for the activation of that afterburner. So these are the two afterburner tricks that you can apply. If anybody else has any other tricks in their sleeve, you can share.
Could you clarify that? I didn't understand.
You can press your afterburner. You will see that you immediately consume a set number of your fuel when you press it.
Yeah, if you tap it, for example.
Yeah, this means that the less you engage it, the less fuel it will consume. So what you want to do is, when you want to engage it, you want to have as much as fuel as possible to use it as efficiently as possible. So if I'm keeping the S pressed, I will get this speed boost from time to time, but I'm not using my fuel to full potential, because now I am more often activating the afterburner than using the fuel for actual speeding up.
Right, thank you.
So, in short, do not burst fire the afterburner.
Yeah. Keep it as much as you can. Once the fuel is full, then use it. Okay, so second is object cover. That's often a good situation for just about anything that is firing at you. You can use object cover to avoid missiles that are on your tail. If you haven't used your flares, if you are on your flare reload time. I'm gonna go on to the subject of how to avoid missiles without using the flares soon. But yeah, object cover is of course good for also anti-air turrets maxes. One thing you can use is that all the anti-air turrets, like 90% of the anti-air turrets, are stationed above the ground to a set height, like different heights. And they cannot aim directly down. You can use this as an advantage, so as a no-shoot zone. The anti-air turret will not be able to shoot a certain angle down. So what you can do is, you can go below that line of sight, and you can shoot the anti-air turret with rocket pods or turrets. They will not be able to shoot back at you because they cannot aim that low. But keep in mind, while you are standing stationary, don't want to stand there for long periods of time, because somebody will eventually give a rocket launcher on you. And if it's an unguided, you are pretty much screwed. But yeah, that's one thing you can use against anti-air turrets. Get underneath them, shoot them from there.
Quick tip about those. While they can actually aim straight up, very few of them look directly up. So going to ceiling altitude and then dive bombing them straight down can also be an effective way.
Yep. And one more note about that is that if you are flying, like, if you have to pass over an anti-air turret, don't pass from side. Pass directly above it, because it's much more harder for it to like look down. Then it has to make an all 180-degree turn and then continue to follow you. It will waste its time more, and you will more likely to survive if you pass right above it, because he cannot do a directly 180 turn if he's looking directly upwards. He has to turn his turret, if you know what I mean. You can test this out yourself in a nearby anti-air turret that you will not be able to follow a site that is directly passing over you. So, any questions about this?
So if you're heading toward a enemy AA, going straight for him and passing over and then diving beneath him? Ish?
Yeah, preferably you don't want to dive if your position is already exposed, because there might not be just that anti-air turret, and losing your health to a very exposed area is not very recommended. But if you have to pass over it, pass directly over it and not from side of it. This is so that you will, right after you pass over it, you will have more time to live, basically, because it will have find you, turn around, etc. Okay, so let me clear my throat. So next subject is defensive tactics. This is safe zones and object cover. Object cover is basically breaking the line of sight. You can do this with just about anything. You can use an enemy galaxy to break the line of sight of an enemy. They will not be able to, like, either they hit the galaxy rather than hitting you, so you can use an enemy unit to cover yourself. That often comes in handy if you are fighting Mosquito. They will often break off if you are pulling so close to a galaxy. For instance, you could pass directly in front of a galaxy that is moving, but because it's moving, the Mosquito behind you has to break off more to follow you after the galaxy. You can use that time to turn around in that little confusion you created to make a counter-strike against the Mosquito. You can use this as a same in the ground, low. For instance, a Mosquito is following you. You can use cover. Scythes actually have the best design to pass underneath stuff, pass through stuff. So they are thin. Use that to your advantage. The enemy Mosquito will break, if they break the line of sight, you have the element of surprise now. You can just directly turn and prepare to engage. For instance, what I do is, in the canyon areas, you will see those little holes on the ground where there's rocks above them. If a Reavers or Mosquito is following me, what I do is I will pass through one of those holes and directly go up. I will break my, break the gas propulsion, and what will happen is that I will just stop going up. I will directly turn back and politely greet the Mosquito and the Reaver following behind me. They will be oblivious to the situation because they will not be seeing me behind cover as I'm turning. This can also, if you don't see the Mosquito or the Reaver, this means they have broken the line of sight with you and they have chosen an alternative route.
Connected.
So you came and hit them from behind. So that's a little trick that you can use in just about any position, like in the tech plants, that breach area. You can use this as in the amp stations, where you can pass through underneath the pylons, in the canyon areas, or even in the trees, if the timing is right. Sometimes they break off too much that they lose your line of sight completely. Regarding safe zones, safe zone is basically a place where AA is either covering you or you know that there's no combat. As a safe zone, if you are landing, if you are just looking a place to repair, always land near object. Don't land in the middle of nowhere, where you are more exposed to the surrounding areas. If you are with maneuvering, land into a shielded area. Warp Gate, M Station, Tech Plant, all the shielded areas are perfect places for a very safe repair from the enemy air. If you're like during a tower siege, if AA is covering heavily the air, still you might not want to land on top of the landing pads even though AA is covering you. Again, apply the other tactics that you learned, land underneath the pads for repair and use under the pads to get ammo. So that's about it for the defensive tactics that I could think of. Anybody wants to add anything?
Yeah, if you're burning and you're going into a shielded area, don't be afraid of just slamming into the ground. You won't die from it.
Well, shielded areas in Warp Gate, right?
Yeah,
Like
Warp Gate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course you can try it in a tech plan. I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, inside the gates.
Yeah, inside the warp, your health will never decrease. You're inside the site, but make sure that you immediately start to repair once you get out. So you can take your time inside the warp gate. In other situations, you don't have the time in your advantage. But
wait, don't the burning damage kill you eventually?
No.
Nope, not in the Warp Gate.
Ah.
If you are inside the warp gate, you don't no longer take damage from any source.
Ah, thank you.
Nice.
Except if you're a friend.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of friendlies inside the warp gate that want to kill your empty scythe, so also be afraid of those.
Yeah, and that can happen at any moment. That's true. Yeah, it can happen when basically if there's not a player inside the vehicle, it can take damage. If there's a player inside the vehicle, it cannot take damage.
From the warp gate, if you want to resupply, it's usually, or repair, it's usually a bad idea.
So, in general, if you're coming in and you're on fire and you're flying as a medic, don't say, oh, I'll just land my burning aircraft, jump out of it, run down, swap to engineer, then run back up. Because once you've done it, it is going to start taking fire damage, and then it is going to explode. So, in that case, if you cannot repair it immediately yourself, sit and wait for a engineer to come and fix you up. They will probably appreciate the XP. But then again, why are you flying as a medic?
Exactly. Triage. Heal yourself.
Okay, so I guess that covers the defensive tactics. As for offensive tactics, first I want to give. It's not much of an offensive. It can be also defensive, but you can actually go faster with a sight than with a little neat trick that you can apply. For instance, when you are flying forward, always press space. This will also add your speed, the speed of your altitude change.
Yeah,
like,
you have to tip the nose down and then do it. Right?
Yeah, the nose down a little. Be aware that if you are doing this very close round, then if you give afterburner, you have to compensate for it, because the afterburner will increase your forward speed, which will push you directly to the ground. So before you give after, tilt your sight a little bit normal position.
It's a little over 10% extra speed. It's pretty nice.
Yep.
15% with hover frame 3.
Actually, it should be mentioned that you don't actually need to tilt the nose down. That is just if you want to actually avoid gaining altitude.
Yeah, that's also true. So yeah, when you are flying, just keep the space pressed also to get that additional speed boost from your lower thrusters. I see people have already started trying that one. Okay, so other thing, attack timing. This is rather tricky in a way that it often means that you have to pick your targets. For instance, if you see a mosquito doing erratic movements and you are too far away, your preferred time to act is not then. If you are too far away, and if you are thinking that, oh, when I fire at this guy, it will alert him to my presence, then don't fire, because you will do like what, 2 bullets will hit, you will gain almost nothing, but the enemy will now know that he's being chased. So pick your targets, pick your attack times, to the advantage as long as nothing else spots you. But you are more likely to kill something if you are firing from close range. That doesn't go for the anti-air missile. This is for the main lasers. With anti-air, you can just fucking shoot from anywhere you want. Okay, so speaking of anti-airs, how to avoid missiles in a very open space. If you don't have sometimes you will see that the enemy mosquito right in front of you is locking onto you with a missile. The missiles itself has a set turn rate. And what this means is that if you go with a certain angle against the enemy mosquito, you can achieve this angle by using the space to go up or control to go down, rather than moving your aim away from the enemy mosquito. But what this will help you is that as you are, this is a term from EVE Online, your angular speed against the enemy, which means that if you consider the enemy as a compass, you will be moving much more angular degree per second. Basically, what this means is that if you reach a certain angular speed, the missile they fired will not be able to catch up with you. What will happen is that it will pass by you. In some cases, it can turn around and come back to hit you in the ass. In other cases, it will pass above you, and as it's turning around, it will hit the ground. If you think about what kind of trajectory it would follow in 3 dimensions as it's passing over you, it will want to find the closest way to turn to you. What it will do is make dive, but due to the missile's maximum angular turn rate, it is more likely to hit the ground, depending on your altitude.
User joined your channel.
So this is a way of, if you master this one, you can gain a lot more fight time against anti-air equipped mosquito that is trying to take you out with anti-airs fully. Because what they will see is that you don't have flares, because you haven't, as far as they know, you haven't used flares. What you can do is, for their second strike, then you can use your flares to mindfuck them. In the meantime, you had all this time to engage them with your own AAs, your rocket launchers, your own main gun. So pick your situations. I wouldn't recommend trying to avoid that missile at every case. If you are getting followed, don't try to make a turn and get away, because you will not be able to gain enough angular speed if you are heading away from the enemy. Rather than if you are heading towards it, you can gain more angular speed if you give an angle. I mean, strafe to the side. It's all about your own experience. I cannot give you a certain, turn this much angle, because during a firefight you will not be able to calculate that. So it's up to you to master this. That's about covers all the subjects I wanted to go as primarily. What I want to do now is divide into teams and have a platoon waypoint on one of the towers. So everybody in the Alpha squad from 1 to 6, please go over right in the middle of the warp gate, and when I tell you, strike at the tower of the designated platoon waypoint. So everybody in the Alpha from 1 to 6, go to the right in the middle, face yourself towards the platoon waypoint. I'll be watching as what you are doing. Remember,
get out of.
Remember, if you are all going straight and you are side by side with a fellow Scythe, if you go straight, your odds of collision increase. So listen the situation, and apply what kind of maneuver you can pull off to not collide. So you are all starting from same formation, heading towards a single point. By mathematically, this will increase your odds of collision. So get ready to head towards the target and hit him everything you got with you got. Get set. Ready? Go.
And we have 3 deaths.
Okay, what I seen was that a couple of you guys had problems from the start. So I'm going to put the target more further away to a different location. Now this time, let's spice things up. Everybody come to the middle, and we will don't land, just hover around. And when I say, we are all going to be going there and hitting the target. I'm picking a target. Okay, so target is set. Take a moment to orient yourself towards the target. Platoon waypoint.
We're going outside of the safe
everybody?
zone.
Yes,
We're all gonna
this is
die.
going to be
Please,
outside
everybody
the
hover
same
and
zone.
move forward so we don't crash straight in the beginning.
Yeah, I'm gonna be standing a little bit away to see. Use your ears. I mean, I don't have to say this anymore. So, get set. Okay, ready? Okay, go.
Nice.
Nicely done. Nicely done.
How many
I
deaths?
saw-
No, no crashes. Oh, there was one.
One crash.
One hit in the rocks.
Only couple.
Okay,
I
get
just
back
saved
to the warp.
myself.
Get back to the warp gate. So I seen that people who were strafing and coming towards the target from, you actually managed to like